Welcome to another edition of the Gamer Gambit, where a fateful roll of the dice will fill you with awe or indifference. Corey, how have you been?
Doing all right. It has been a while. Lots of crazy stuff going on, but it's good to be back
Yeah, hey,
and
did you dress
showing
up
some more
for
good indication.
did you dress up for Halloween?
Um, no, we unless you consider being ghostly and staying inside and turning off the front porch lights,
Oh,
a Halloween costume. No,
well,
did
at
not
least you
dress up.
didn't leave your
How
porch
about
lights
you?
on. I did dress up. We dress up every year. We did a full moon theme on the house, and then we all dressed up for werewolves, except for my daughter, who dressed up as Little Red, I guess, Murder Hood. She was a Little Red Riding Hood with the bow, for hunting, the huntress.
Oh, right on. Cool.
Right, well, kick us off with what you've got.
All right. So this week, it is Jetbuster by jackdarx. And the general story, it's a shmup game, a smash 'em up game, remnants of the 90s, smash 'em up games, like maybe Galaga, that sort of thing. And the story says that, in a general sense, it's 2182, and there after it's been a decade since the Xeno Wars, and all the civilizations across the galaxy have begun to rebuild their society. One such society is what humans have named Earth J, which is a planet comprised of humanoid animals. And there was one such cat, I believe, that had was inspired to do some singing, and in J-pop. She was a big J-pop idol, and then the mean-spirited animals did not want her singing, so her tours were constantly ruined by angry people, which made Makoto, the our heroess, so mad she became a crime sweeper, going on personal vendetta against those who ruined her musical tours. This musical is going to be full of bullets. So
That is quite the intro.
that is quite the interesting intro of Jetbuster by jackdarx. And what I have here set up and ready is, there's limited instruction on the keys and how to get going. So I did this myself, which is just starting the game without any instruction and the first playthrough until you couldn't play through anymore. And I challenged three other little ones to the same thing. So this might not be perfectly spliced and set up, but generally, I'm going to just kind of talk about the game and the controls a little bit while I attempt to have all four simultaneously playing at the same time. The one on the top left is mine, and it's also the only one with sound.
Okay. So I take it then that there is not linked play on this.
No, this is solo smash 'em up only. And what every person did was given limited instructions. So this is of varying ages between
Yeah.
myself and um, the ages of 8 and 12, three other players. And I gave them the only thing I gave them was to hit the Z key as far as pressing enter, and then otherwise got them started in the standard mode, not the expert mode, in the standard mode, and then selecting yes for the tutorial. So there's a small tutorial now which everyone is progressing through, and it basically just tells you that Z is to shoot, and you can hold it down for auto fire. There's a kind of a clear screen or clear weak enemies from the screen button, which is X defaults on the keyboard, and then Shift for an alternate fire. You collect coins, and those coins help you gain. They help you level up your medals, and the medals you get by destroying enemies from the alternate fire. So otherwise, the difference that I've deduced is that the coins, which you can see are being collected now, the coins are what is used to purchase continues, and they give you less overall score compared to the medals.
I'm
The
just going to
medal
point out that
attack.
Is this like level 1 guns?
It is the basic guns before your
Because
before
it's
you
like
you gain some of the power.
75% of the screen.
Well, right.
Love
So
it.
basically, it's a matter of mainly dodging attacks.
Yeah.
So that's the player choice as far as gaining the coins versus using the alternate attack. Is the alternate attack does less damage,
Okay.
and does less. It pierces, but it does less damage, and it takes up less of the screen, and it provides you medals for a point bonus, instead of the main attack, which gives you coins and helps you level up.
And is there a way to
So,
is there a way to throw up shields or take out all the bullets on the screen or anything like that?
the X button is all that you're given, at
Yeah.
least in the first couple of levels, as
Yeah.
far as a screen clear. And I believe it gives you a very short kind of iframes or invul when you use it. But I was not able to deduce that was against specific enemies or targets.
Yeah.
As far as because there's some stationary objects, there's some moving objects, and then there's the fire that you have to dodge.
Oh my gosh. It's just vomiting bullets on you.
So yeah, so you can see it's interesting because what I found was interesting outside of the three others to do it is I was curious on how varying levels, almost like a social experiment, how varying levels of ages can ingest a new genre that they've never played before.
Yeah, the intuitiveness of it.
And right, and being able to learn enough of the game from the tutorial to see how far that they could progress without a second playthrough. There's one exception. The youngest actually died in the tutorial and was unable to finish the tutorial.
So, well, that's hardcore there.
Well, right. So I allowed that person to finish the tutorial and go again.
Yeah.
And they made it to the actual game. But the mindset difference was kind of interesting because they were very much, okay, what do I need to, I mean, reading was fine, but then very much, okay, I get it. Just give me some gameplay. Let me blow stuff up.
Right.
And then being unprepared for that portion in the tutorial where you need to demonstrate, hey, here's how coins work. So you have to kill things and then losing all your lives. And then the coin mechanic of not being able to afford a continue came into play because you get your initial continue purchase from the tutorial, from just saying, hey, press Z and kill these things. So the top left, I'm on one of the bosses, the mini bosses. So you can tell it's got a health bar, that sort of stuff. Varying attack patterns, and it doesn't just die.
Well, and you had a tank before
very
that.
easily.
Was that not one of the bosses too?
Yes, that was the boss of the very first stage.
Okay. Yeah, and it looks like one of them got to the tank over there too. Top right.
Yes. And I believe, if I recall, I got the farthest, which I believe was to the entry of the third stage, which is what I'm going through now. And then the next closest player, which is interesting because it's actually by age as far as how far everyone got, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the oldest got through, or got to the tank, like you mentioned, the top right, and then the youngest didn't get through the tutorial, but I gave a second shot and then got right into the game, and then the one in between got partway through the first level.
Was this mouse or arrow keys?
The only keys used are arrow keys, Shift, Z, and X. Z is to enter or to shoot, and then X to... I think there might have been a different outcome with the controller,
right?
But I think that only would have came... For me, the difference, I think, would have been more exponential because I'm used to the genre and gameplay, right?
Sure.
Because I've played these kind of before, so I get the idea of, at some point, there's going to be things flying at me, and I'm going to need to defend myself by moving out of the way of thousands of projectiles on the screen that make your eyes cross.
Yeah, the moving
But the other ones
up
were
to
not, and
clear the
that's what I thought
top and
was
then moving
interesting.
back to avoid everything. We all know this from 1942 and Nintendo, classic Nintendo, right?
Right, right. So you can see during the continues that it shows me how many coins I have and then how much it costs to continue, which progressively increases.
Okay.
So I'm able to get a little bit further because I'm killing a lot more things between lives and collecting more coins.
Yeah.
Um, so I started to pick up on that gameplay mechanic very quickly. As far as by the time I got to my third or fourth continue, I was thinking, well, do I just get unlimited of these? And then I looked, and then that made me pause at that screen and look and say coin where it says coins needed. I'm like, oh, so I better do better
Yeah, I
as we
can't
go
understand
through.
how you got
But
as far as you did just then because the screen was just covered in bullets.
oh yeah, it got pretty ridiculous, especially using arrow keys because,
Right.
as you well know, trying to do this with controller, you tap on it and you go 2 inches on the screen. Plus the resolution, and it was not played in full screen, um, and making each tap
Oh, you were
possibly
just
have you go farther or
30,
shorter
what was
distance.
it, 36 coins short of continuing.
So what is that? What that was?
It was very narrow.
Yeah. So that is so that was Jetbuster by jackdarx. Um, it was an interesting experiment. I enjoyed it. I kind of maybe enjoyed more the experiment than the game. Um,
Yeah.
but what I learned from the game, I guess, or from the experiment, was more of how important a tutorial can be and the assumptions that you may or may not make when it comes to the audience you want to include for your game, or the if you want to expand the audience, there might be a couple of assumptions that you don't make or that you wouldn't make, and make sure that there is an explanation of it.
Mhm.
So a lot of people that played arcade games in the 80s and 90s, what you would very easily be able to say, hey, this is a Galaga game. Use Z to press enter, arrow keys, shift and X. X is your bomb, go. And they would probably get through a level or two without the tutorial, right?
Right.
But to from the experiment portion, as someone who has never experienced this genre at all, the concept and idea, and reading that through the tutorial and realizing that what, someone might die in this tutorial. Yeah, they could try again, but what am I trying to? It's a tutorial. I mean,
Right. It's
I
kind of
don't know.
unfair.
Yeah, I don't. I think the last game that I actually lost or died in the tutorial might have been Eve Online. I don't know. It's been a while. Usually, the tutorial is very much get you through it so you can learn stuff. But
Right.
so that was Jetbuster. The rating that I gave it was for the genre, and is indie game. Indie game ratings is a 4 out of 5. Um,
That's pretty
gave
good.
it one for the art. It looked decent.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the character art, and there were as you got through some of the levels, they added in just a little bit of additional art and dialogue outside of just the variation of enemies
Mhm.
and explosions. Right, those were variable, but also they added in a little extra art with some of that dialogue rather than just having blanket text on there. So I appreciated that. The mechanics, I gave it a one. There's not really too much that you can go right or wrong with this type of genre. The mechanics are generally very limited anyway. Um, the I did appreciate the medals versus coins, and the user or the person playing would have to determine kind of strategically what they would how they would use one attack versus the other, and pick up on, well, this one pierces but does a little bit less damage, but I can use it for score generation if I'm comfortable with my coin count and my skills bounced against the level.
Were you min
So
maxing this game?
no, no, definitely not. I was time distancing because I was thinking in my head while I was playing, I'm like, I'm gonna get some other people in here and just see how people without haven't played the genre go through it. So I better if I'm gonna show anybody up and the challenge is going to be how far can you get, then I better make sure I go the farthest. So coins were for me.
Right.
I switched a little bit, but yeah, for the most part it was coins. The controls were pretty simple. We can't go wrong there.
Except for
The
the
story
Z
narrative, I
thing,
give.
right? The non-intuitive press Z.
Right, that's something I didn't that wasn't a hill that I was going to die on with that score. I think that if the author of the game would have put a small text on the opening screen that says use Z to press enter, or they label it as button one and then in parentheses put Z set as default to work with the menu, that would have gone worlds just to go into the options menu and view what the rest of the controls were.
Right.
So I did have to look that up on the Steam forums. But as far as the overall game, I wasn't going to say, I wasn't going to leave that as the hill to die on. I gave it a 0 for story narrative. There, as I set that up in the beginning there on purpose. It was kind of out there, and the dialogue in the middle was I appreciated to kind of remind the person playing that there's a little bit of story and here's some interaction and dialogue.
Hmm.
But the game's only 6 levels, and I got to the end of the third one on one playthrough. So the difficulty could potentially hockey stick, but at the end of the day, there wasn't too much there to have any specific like climax in the story or any subplots or anything like that. It was pretty pretty bland.
Yeah.
It could have
Yeah.
been it could have been a little better.
Like there was a
And sound,
story, but it wasn't worth a whole lot, I take it.
right. With the sound though, because I ran into that problem of not knowing that Z was how I interacted with the menu. When I launched the game and you heard the music, I sat there for probably 10 minutes trying to mess with controls and restarting the game, and I realized that the music was pretty chill. It didn't bother me like at all and was pretty catchy. I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
And and that's when I realized it's just like, well, this clearly gets a 1 in that category because the music's not, annoying.
I
It
didn't
it it
immediately turn
fit.
it off.
Well, right, yeah, it fits. I didn't try to mute the window until I could figure out how to play.
Yeah.
So again, that's Jack Darks is Jet Buster, available for 6 or 9.99 as both on Steam and also itch.io.
Okay. Yeah. We would call that real money.
Real money.
Okay. Well, my game has an interesting title, kind of belabored, as I will give the intro and you'll get a sense of why I say that. The title is Moss Creeps, Stone Crumbles by Adam Roy. Moss Creeps, Stone Crumbles is a game about the slow, gentle march of nature. Using drawings and words, you'll tell the story of a forest grove and how it changes over the course of 100 years. You play with any number of participants from 2 through 20. So obviously I played with 5 participants, as that's what we've got here at the house. And because this is a pencil game, as it were. This is how I was introduced to the game. And so what you're seeing is, yes, a text file titled Moss Creeps, Stone Crumbles. And in this text file, it details the game and all of its instructions. It is roughly 2 pages, although if you pull that window to ultra wide, then it is less than 1 page. So I was a little bit surprised by the amount of work that went into this particular game. But then I looked further into it because I was like, surely this isn't it. Surely there's more than this. Because I was like, I could put together a better PowerPoint presentation to display this. So I looked a little further and I did find a PDF, which we see just a little bit of it here because I don't want to give it all away. So there is a PDF that actually has pictures and it has formatting. And so now, okay, I've got a 2-page, which I completely respect, a 2-page role-playing game, if you will. So the idea of this game is, as I set it up in the intro, you divide up a piece of paper 20 ways, and each section of the paper is 5 years, and you label it accordingly. And so then one person draws a picture of what is occurring within the forest during that 5-year period. And the way it's read and the way I understood it is that you maybe you're the tree, maybe you're just like the forest, like omnipotently, right? So what's happening within the forest, or what do you see? And it could be a vignette of something very even microscopic, or it could be macroscopic, and it's a large picture of what's happening in the. And what's interesting about the game too is that it starts out by telling you that you need to get yourself in the mood of this game, and so it proposes a meditation to help you get the sense of you are a tree growing, and a lifetime for you is 100 years. So 5 years is a birthday, right? It's very little. So it's kind of asking you to slow down and think about your surroundings and appreciate what's happening around you and draw it and illustrate. So then the game is you draw the picture, and then the next person who's going to draw a picture has to write effectively the subtitle of your picture. So just a few words, a sentence that details what your drawing was without talking to you about it. So it's just I draw it, and then, for instance, my daughter would write the description of what happened. And so it doesn't always work the way you expect it to, because your drawing may not translate very well to others' eyes. So in this next image, I have, and I'll tell you a little bit about the problems with this game too. So I have 40 years shown here in our version of this. And so for me, I was the first 5 years, and then I was year 30, and then I was year 40. And then various other people filled in some of those others. So I drew in the first picture a seed emerging from soil with a bright ray of sunshine kind of coming in behind it. And that came across pretty much as I expected it. And then I think my daughter drew the next one, and it was interpreted later as snow falling. And I don't know if that was really what she expected. So anyway, it kept going. The forest burnt down. There was rebirth on the forest. There was a farm that was built apparently. And then the last one I drew was actually of soldiers in the forest. So there was war, amongst the forest. So pretty cool, right? I mean, it starts to build a story. And I think I like the idea of after 100 years, you've got this pictograph, which you could then kind of read off. And it's just sort of this interesting narrative on what happened in the forest. And it was, in this case, 5 people who came up with the narrative. So everybody continues everybody else's sentence, except that you don't necessarily you don't know the words when you write them. You write the sentence before you instead of the sentence next. So I think there's a really interesting thing to this, and I'd actually like to keep playing around with it and try some other iterations. So the problem that I found in it is, and this is really my fault more than anything, I think, I took this game as a leisure thing where you basically just have it on the dinner table, and from time to time people come by and they make their mark and update the description, prior to them, and we just kind of advance through it. And the problem with that, and I think the problem with a lot of people with this, is that unless you're like sitting down and concentrating on it, you're probably not it's going to fall off, right? Like it's just not necessarily going to be a priority for you to stay on. And so the picture that you're seeing is now weeks of us having been gone, and we've only done up to 40 years. We've only done 8 frames, instead of having completed all 20 of the frames. So I think this would have been better played if I had sat down and said, all right, we're going to sit here for the next 2 hours, and we're going to draw every picture and write every description, and then read aloud, the story, and it'll be pretty interesting to look at. But I don't know that people would do it again after that. Like, maybe it's a good party trick, but I don't know that people would get into that and want to just keep doing it. I don't know. Could be interesting.
It's a time-based thing, unless everyone's a quick artist. I don't know.
No, that's actually a good idea, is to time box it so that everybody has like 30 seconds. That actually would probably make it more comedic, so that the drawings get really bad and the descriptions get more off base. So that could be a lot of fun, actually. Maybe that's the party trick variant of this that I could try out. I also thought about colorizing it afterward. That could be fun to go, once your story's told, everybody could go back and colorize the entire thing. That could be interesting. So the other problem I had with this particular game was that I mean, there didn't need to be a lot of instruction. That was fine. I even thought the meditation was kind of cool, just to get you to like get you in a mindset of what are we doing? What, why are we, what are we drawing? What perspective are we? That kind of thing. But the problem was is that I think it should have included a template that had a pre-gridded sheet for you, because I spent too much effort producing a 4x5 grid on a piece of paper that, I mean, you know me, it took up that piece of paper exactly perfectly.
Right.
Every
And it,
square
it
was the
does.
same
It looks
size.
sharp.
Yeah.
It looks sharp.
Everyone was the same size. And then I had to write the labels of the years next to them. And so, yeah, thinking
And
about
you
it,
don't
it's
want to
like,
touch it yet. You want to scan it in so you can reprint it.
right. I needed templates, so I don't have to reproduce that thing. So I think that would have actually been helpful. Of course, I could create one of those, right, and then just reproduce it.
Compliments to the artist, though, man. Those are good drawings
Some of them,
considering
yeah, some of
it's
them
not all
were
one.
really
It's not one person that has a background in doing artist work.
right, right.
That's multiple people. So that's good.
That's what's fun about it, is that it's all different styles too, and yet even with my this age range you talked about with yours, this is from 9 years old to me, right? But for the kids, 9 to 17. So that age range, they're all producing art that everybody was able to recognize what was going on, at least largely what was going on in that picture. So I think that's pretty cool to see how everybody visions. The other problem with this, and I think this is if you spread it out over time, the other problem with this is that the context is lost, and the context is loose anyway. But I think what I saw happening is that you took each frame as almost like a comic book frame, and you were producing an image, what happened next. And what it really should be is, they're 5-year blocks. So it's not necessarily what happened next. I mean, it is what happened next, but not immediately next. It could be year 1 and year 10, right? Like they're just 5-year blocks. So
right, yeah.
I think they should probably have less of a continuity between them, and maybe your story, what the description that you write, you have to do a little work to like read it as a story at that point. But you would always be saying 5 years later, or in the next decade, or whatever.
Have you heard? I'm gonna mess this up. My meme skills are gonna fail me right now. Have you heard of the phrase or those? I don't know if it was memes, or the phrase where once you see it, you'll know, or once you see it, you can't unsee it. One of those two.
I
Like where
know,
someone
yeah,
shows you an image
yeah, I
and it
know
looks it
this.
looks like benign, but then there's a caption that says once you see it, and you look
Right,
and you look and look, and then eventually you see that's like, hidden thing there. So I
right.
would say that with year 30 for me, that
Y-
was like I was looking at a whole bunch of these, and I was looking at that one, and then now once I see it,
Yeah.
once I've seen it, now I can't unsee it.
There's year 30.
Right. So I don't know if you noticed anything that you can't unsee with that or not.
I mean, I drew it, so I had a certain idea in my head of what was going on in that. My daughter, I think, wrote the description. A farm was built, which was not what I had drawn. What I was thinking in my head when I drew it was the land laid bare for many years, because prior to that was a forest fire. So we had a forest fire in year 20. And then in year 25, things lay dead for a long time. I said the forest rests for a long time, and then I said I was thinking the sun rise as the land laid bare. The sun rises for new life. So what do you
Yeah.
see in
So
it?
what I see the sun squinting a little bit and taking a big inhale of earth, like taking
Just
a big
snorting it in.
sniff. Yes, it's got like the little two nostrils
Yeah,
there,
they're
and it's just
just
like
peeking over the edge. Yeah. That
Yeah, and it's
see, that
you
could be
got the,
great.
the try hard, that's why the eyes are squinting a little bit. It's
That's
like
right.
really,
That's right.
pulling in the earth, bringing that life back out, extracting that life.
See, that's what could be fun about this is that you don't get to talk about it. You just have to write the description based on what you see, what you believe.
Yeah, so, I'll let you know, I forget what the if it actually had a name, but I've actually done this before at, many years ago, and everyone loved it at a big extended family gathering around the holidays after everyone's, belly's full, less people are less active,
Mhm.
and there was generally a larger open room where 15, 20, whatever people could gather around, and we take, a couple of things of Post-it notes and pass out a whole bunch of pens and pencils, and basically everybody we give somebody, like, a theme and tell them, like, 1 word,
Yeah.
1 word or 1 to 3 words, like 1 word or a small phrase, and then you write that, and then you take the sticky note and pass it to the left, and then so someone just gave you a word, or everyone just got a word, and then everyone draws a picture, on another they take another sticky note, put it on top of it or behind it, and then they draw the interpretation of that word. So, and then you keep on rinsing and repeating until you get back your original word, and then everybody takes a moment to share and, story time. You say the word, and then you peel back the picture, and
It's like a
it's
reverse Pictionary.
right. So, what makes it really fun and funny is that, a lot of people generally, at least my experience, anecdotally, is a lot of people don't have extremely good drawing skills. So, when it comes to drawing maybe more complex, words or phrases, um, so when someone writes a word and then someone draws it and the drawing is not very good, then somebody has to define what that best looks like to them, and then it's kind of like the telephone game in a sense where it keeps on weaving, so everybody gets a laugh. So sorry, that was like a drawn out explanation, but that's what this reminds me of. But this looks like a more cleaner, collaborative version. You at least already have a focal point
Right.
on what you're trying to. There's better guardrails, I guess, versus to have it be more open, wild
Well,
west.
but to your point, if no one in the room is in it to produce art, right, and no one is particularly artistic, then I think that actually makes it very fun. Like you get a lot of laughs out of it.
Yeah, yeah, it can, yeah.
It's a little bit like karaoke. Nobody likes it when people get up there and do a great job.
Oh, great example, great example.
All the hoot and hollering comes out when the worst singers get up there.
I got yeah, I got plenty of stories about karaoke and people came up and did compliments like, "Oh, that was awesome," and I know that they weren't talking about my singing skills.
Right.
Had to do with something
That
else.
was the most fun because you're horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
All right. Well,
but
let's.
that's interesting. How long do you say you went through that? How
So
long,
we went through 40 weeks of it, so that was 8 frames, and the period of time was probably realistically it was probably like I don't know, like a week, because it wasn't every day. It was like we'd do one or we'd do a few in one day, and then there'd be a couple days missed, and then you'd do a couple more, and then a day missed, and then so it was kind of like that.
okay.
What I'd like to see is just sat down and go through it. And I like the idea of time boxing it because then there's a sense of hurry up and don't labor it. And I think that makes things a little bit more well funny and just loose for that matter.
What did you rate it under?
Oh yeah, so I rated this under the same thing so last time I did an instructional, which was Interstellar Errands. That was by Josh G. And so this one I rated the same way, and I actually only gave it 2 out of the 5, and I'm going to revisit that a little bit, but just to keep myself honest here, I think the writing was good. It was I gave it a 1 for writing because there was some explanation and there was sort of guidance on how to get into the mood and all of that. And I also gave it 1 for organization because once I found that there was There was a text-only version, which accessibility standpoint, that's great. Actually, you could read it on a phone, but then there were PDFs, and there was like a print PDF, and then there was just a standard PDF. And the print PDF had all the graphics, was much larger, so that's kind of cool. Um, from an engagement and a mechanics standpoint and an empower standpoint. So the empowering part, if they had put the template in there, I'd have given them a point for that. So I felt like the empowerment to me is like the here you go forth and do a good job. If I had had the template, then I'd have been empowered. From a mechanics standpoint, there weren't a lot of guardrails, and maybe something like the time boxing would have been a good thing to do, but it was pretty wide open, so there just wasn't a lot to it, right? There wasn't much to rate in that regard. And then in the engagement, that's where I was saying my experience is that the players, I couldn't keep 5 people like engaged on the plan over a long period of time, and it might have been different, like I said, if we had just sat down and done it in 2 hours. But it wasn't something that drew them in naturally to want to go in and finish it.
So let me ask you this: the template. Do you think that there would be alternative methods of gameplay? I guess. Do you think that that would have been too could have been too prescriptive to include a template, because then that directs on how the game plays or unfolds, versus is there an opportunity to use your imagination, or attack it from or play from different using a different technique, you use your
Yeah,
imagination a little bit to perhaps come have a different experience,
right.
and maybe the author left that open.
Yeah, what I might imagine, when you were talking about that, what I was thinking is that instead I do the old origami Pac-Man thing, and everybody draws an image, and you flip, and there's a new image. So I can imagine that as a version of this game. But no, the instructions in this were actually pretty specific on how they wanted the page divided, and how it was 100 years, and each square was 5 years. So that was pretty specific. And I think to your point, for sure you could go back and add some sort of creative element to that, and I think that's a great idea. But like, to provide the template might inspire you to do that, right? Whereas if you just spend the time to come up with your own, then you're like, all right, well, I've done it, I don't want to have to do that again. But if they provided you one, you'd be like, well, this is cool, but I can think of a better way to do it.
Okay,
Maybe it'd
fair
work
enough.
that way, I don't know. So I gave
I
it
think
2 because in the end it wasn't like I was prepared to give it 3, and possibly even give it that old bonus point for the fun factor, right, that we talked about before. But the fact of the matter was that we took a long time and didn't finish it, and so I just feel like maybe it didn't have the wow factor that it needed for all of my players to really get into it. I thought it was pretty cool, and I was jazzed about it. It definitely doesn't work as a one-player game, and I think it's more fun if you get more players, especially with diverse players doing it. It could even be something that you do, almost like a play by post kind of thing, where I drop an image into
right, yeah,
Discord
like
channel, and
just by
then
mail.
yeah, exactly. So you could do it that way, and you could actually probably cut through it pretty quick. I mean, you could open it up to Reddit and be done, in an hour.
Yeah, yeah,
That
a
could
place
actually be
like
really
Reddit, yeah,
interesting.
probably. Well, so are you still going to think about and revisit your rating, or are you closing out today with a 2?
Well, I'm going to close out today with a 2. If people come back and they say, "Hey, I wanted to finish that up. Let's go back to it." Then I'll revisit it then if somebody gets interested and wants to push on that. I may actually try the play by post thing, because I think that could be an interesting experiment with this. And just in our Discord channel, I know there's a number of people that would do it. I mean, they could do one frame, and there's enough people on there that everybody could do one frame, and we'd be done in just a little while.
Yeah, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I'm game for that. I think that'd be fun. That'd be a good way to get the rest of those guys involved in this again. We
I
missed the
hope so.
slackers. All right, so
Well,
speaking
probably
of
won't be at least till
which,
after the,
what's that?
it probably won't be at least till after the holidays.
Well, that's fair. That's
I'm
fair.
assuming if everyone's busy, then people
Right.
are gonna be even busier, but
People will be missing. in action. That's the
So
excuse anyway.
it's up to us.
It'll just be you and me posting back and forth.
Well, we can get everybody into doing this and drawing an image. I think get some volunteers because
For
there's
sure.
no weekly time commitment, that sort of stuff.
We
So
can
I
put
think
it
that
into some sprint planning and do retros, and suddenly they'll just have to do it
yeah.
without even realizing it. All right, so I think we're at that time, and I believe that our bot is running, so we
Cool.
should be able to draw from the hat, as it were.
What did you get?
Yeah, mine may be in the same vein. Mine is called The Sleuth by Dissonance. And let me take a look here. It says it's a custom playbook for Blades in the Dark. So I don't know what Blades in the Dark is, but I may have to learn about two things in order to do this. So we've got in a city brimming with secrets, only one individual can cut through the smoke and make sense of it all. Enter the Sleuth, a peerless detective and mentalist. So
Yeah,
cool.
Blades in the Dark is a fantasy tabletop role playing game by John Harper.
There
Set
we
in a
go.
fictional
Okay.
city.
So we have definitely hit and I know Evil Hat Productions, so we've definitely hit a thick mat of tabletop role playing games. And it's
Yes, the popular English dating sim where you get to tell your story with a family of 5 demon brothers from the moment you meet the
yeah,
incubi to the
yeah.
day you say "I do" to your favorite incubus.
This
This
is
story includes "Seduce Me," do I need to get permission to play this game?
I think you should probably ask your mom, if not your wife, about this game first. But this is perfect because you tried so hard to get something different, and it gave you something different.
Fair enough. I'll
Now you
roll
got
with
to
it.
eat it. Hey, but on the
Yeah.
plus side, this is going for $30 right now on itch. So that is the
This is
realest
like
money we've seen.
some single or double A content that we're getting to, at
Exactly.
least from what they're asking for price.
As far as the indies titles go, this is a AAA game right here. And for all I know, this is a huge title. It's just not in my genre. I don't know this one, but I look forward to you telling us all about it. The gritty details.
Well, all right. Until that time, we'll see if I get to say "I do" to any incubi.
All right. Hey, good game.
Good game.